Well, good afternoon, and congratulations on what I gather has been another very successful B4E conference. And great that so many of you have been able to be here to participate and to feed in your contributions, experiences and insights to all the learning that's been happening over the last day and a half. And WWF is, as ever, delighted to have been part of creating and supporting this conference. My colleague Jim Leap, I think, opened the conference yesterday, reminding us of the scale of the challenges we face. I guess we're all particularly conscious of those with this landmark of 400 parts per million. But we know that the challenge isn't just about climate, it goes wider than that to sustainability, and that these have to be integrated together if we're to achieve the kind of future that we want. But there have been a few contributions and elements within the conference which I think have highlighted some of the challenges that Jim alluded to, and maybe some that he didn't have in mind even when he started speaking. You don't have a business in a 4-degree centigrade world. That's quite a challenge that I gather was resonating with some people yesterday. So that demonstrates that there is clearly an incentive, a business, commercial incentive for businesses to work, whether alone or together, to achieve climate security. And yesterday, I think Jim talked about some of the features of climate-positive business planning, which need to look at solutions right across the supply chain, the value chain, which need to focus, and I'll come back to this, on business-to-government advocacy, which need to think about systems change as well as disruptive innovation. So you've got that sort of small-scale disruptive innovation combined with the big picture of systems change. And of course that, if you go down that route with those 4 components to business planning, that's going to be pretty robust. And I think it's the robust route that avoids the dangers of zero washing, as I gather greenwash might now be referred to. And climate zero or climate positive targets are, of course, tools, and they can be quite hard tools because they can have measurements in them, but that has to go along with tackling the issue of culture change within organizations and within business. And I think from that point of view, we've heard how we need businesses to work to create more of a sense of a movement here that will go with business, that will spur business on and spur government on so that we drive the changes we need right across the private sector and indeed the public sector. And we perhaps recognise that politics can be a barrier. Politicians, prime ministers sometimes lose the sense of ambition that they started with when the realities of power and events take over and demand their attention. So we need to improve the quality of business-government engagement beyond just having meetings between CEOs and prime ministers or secretaries of state or chancellors or whatever. You also heard yesterday, I think, from Ian Cheshire, a man who's taken quite a significant leadership role in this agenda, talking about companies who want to be net positive have got to pick, so where are you going to play? Where are the playing fields? Where is the competitive context in which being net positive is going to work for you? And exemplar projects, whether they're things like Kingfisher's Street Club around the sharing economy, can be a good route into bigger and better things, both because they try things out and because they excite and gain energy around some of the the will to change, which is so vital if we're to make the changes that we've been hearing so much about. And you've also heard over this last day and a half, I think, several times about the importance of recognizing the wider context. Let me highlight, for example, the way digital natives are driving different forms and approaches to consumption, and that businesses have to tap into that if they're going to be successful in the years ahead. Finally, having been involved in a company floating on the stock market many years ago, I'm very conscious that good markets are usually regulated markets. And when you're talking about externalities, that's particularly true. And so good, effective regulation will help us allocate resources efficiently and effectively, just like good stock market regulation helps the capital markets try, at least, to allocate resources efficiently and effectively from a financial returns point of view. And it's a move to true costs, to true prices, and perhaps true capitalism that will take us in the right direction. And the question, of course, that this conference seeks to address is the big one, the how. As we just heard, implementation is 90% of it. So let me say three things that I think have to be part of the way forward if we are to be successful in making all this happen. The first is government engagement. I said I would come back to that issue of business to government engagement because I think it's crucial. I spend a fair bit of my own time on seeking to engage with government to encourage the UK particularly to exploit the opportunities that and the emerging green economy presents to us. So let me illustrate. My colleague Nick Mollo, who you heard from yesterday, was instrumental in us commissioning and publishing a report by Cambridge Econometrics. And it looked at what happens if you have a offshore wind-heavy gas-light future energy strategy versus a gas-heavy wind-light strategy. And it showed that for the UK economy, it would be highly beneficial to go for the wind-heavy scenario. Why? Because you'd get about 20 billion larger GDP from investing in wind, offshore wind, because you'd get about 70,000 extra jobs, and because your balance of payments would be about 8 billion a year better. That's quite apart from the fact that it would also mean you'd have a lot less CO2 being emitted. But the crucial thing about it was this: the government had to be clear and commit to this so that there could be investment in the supply chain, not just in deployment of imported products. And crucially, those benefits could be seen with only marginal increases in electricity prices, and they were not sensitive to the price of gas. Now, as we know, the global offshore wind market might reach $130 billion by 2020, according to a recent Roland Berger report. So that's a pretty major opportunity for countries like the UK to get involved in exporting on the basis of domestically developed expertise and experience. So that's an example of how the green economy that we hear much about can be pursued, provided, of course, we phase down the public and private sector investment in fossil fuels and start to exit from high-risk investments that are exposed to what many are calling the carbon bubble that we face. But of course, we're not there yet. The energy bill is still in Parliament, still lots to do to get that where it should be, and we're involved in that, and I hope many of you are too, particularly looking at what are the opportunities then for huge savings through energy efficiency, for making sure that we do have decarbonisation targets that give a clear parameters for business as to where government is going to take things in terms of the framework that government sets up within which businesses compete and sell. So our vision would be of a mid-century in which the UK is energy positive. climate positive energy coming from the UK on the basis of our positive energy report and its recommendations. And that will be quite something. And let me parallel that with some of the things that Kingfisher has talked about customers creating more energy than they use. I wonder if we can encourage David Cameron to match the ambition of Ian Cheshire. Well, my second message to all of you is that it's going to require companies like Kingfisher, like IKEA, like O2, like BT, and the others that we've heard from, many others in the course of this conference, to step forward with climate positive plans, to demonstrate to government that this makes business sense, that this is possible, and that if they push in the same direction, they will get businesses supporting them and being prepared to articulate that support. Because as we know, governments around the world are too locked into the constraints of what they believe is politically possible. Whereas we at WWF know that in the end, we have to be guided by what is scientifically necessary. And that's going to need the whole of business to get behind the changes that we need with innovative and lucrative products and services being provided. And we do need the service sector to get behind this. I've just come this morning from a meeting with Douglas Flint, the chairman of HSBC, with a couple of other NGOs where we have partnerships with them looking at the water sector globally. And of course, banks and all the other parts of the financial and other service sectors play vital roles in recognizing the business opportunities and getting behind them. And that's going to be even more vital in the run-up to 2015 if we're going to get the kind of climate deal we need for the world to have an attractive future in which people and nature can thrive. And that's where Jim's points from yesterday morning about firms generating significant carbon savings across the value chain, about positively influencing government climate change policies, and as I said, about decarbonising systems and innovating is so important, because in decarbonising whole systems, whether that's transport or food or energy or water, we've got to look at both supply side and demand side changes and action. So that means better produced food and greener, healthier diets. It means better provision of transport solutions and greener travel choices, an escalation in renewables and cutting down on energy waste. So we need to get better at engaging with governments. Secondly, we need businesses to take action themselves. And thirdly, we need to work on this together. WWF, we work on many of these issues, and we're convinced that there are substantial opportunities for business working with other businesses and with NGOs. And so the call from this conference, I think, is for more companies to step forward with net positive plans so that we can see a change across the fronts. From WWF's global perspective, we need marine positive plans. We need forest positive plans. We need freshwater positive plans. And of course, we need climate positive plans. And so to provide support and encourage those who are stepping forward in this way, I'm very pleased that WWF, the climate group, who you've heard from here as well, and Forum for the Future, ditto, are forming a net positive working group to look at deepening our understanding of what does net positive mean in practical terms, and to help broaden its appeal right across the private sector. So do get in touch with us if your business wants to be part of that journey towards a net positive future. So let's see if together we can get a net positive movement up and running with more companies taking up the challenge, putting more pressure on governments and countries to lead with the ambition we need as we approach big decisions in 2015 on climate change and indeed on sustainable development goals, which are so crucial for the future of our planet. Thank you very much for being here. Back to Will.